Okay, so the next segment will be the policy impact and institutions, starting with the sub-regional and national peatlands initiatives and network. So we will hear from Simon Lewis from the University of Leeds and UCL, and then Nicole Pouchel from the Wildlife Conservation Society. Siska Devereaux as well has prepared from UNEP, has prepared a little video for us. And finally, we will hear from Elizabeth Rams-Beltran from the Griswold-Meyer Center. So over to you, Simon. Slides, please.
Hi, while we get the slides going, I'm Simon Lewis. So I'm a scientist. I work on climate change and tropical forests. And I'm going to talk to you for hang on. About network of scientists, Congo Peat, and thinking about going from science towards policy. And this is a little kind of after lunch little story. Co-led by myself, Ifo Spencer-Verti and Corneille Wango, who is here, from Republic of Congo and Democratic Republic of Congo, respectively. This is Corneille in the photo, and we are prospecting for peat here in DRC with Greta Darji. Do we put it this way? You can do it, just... I thought you had the magic touch. No. Try the other button. So I will continue while they sort out the slides. In the center of the Congo Basin is a huge wetland. If you go on the internet today, it'll say it's the second biggest wetland in the tropics after the Pantanal. It's just not true. We know so little about the Congo Basin region that actually the largest wetland in the tropics is actually in the central Congo Basin. About 360,000 kilometers squared of wetland. The Pantanal, by contrast, even at its most flooded, never gets larger than 200,000 kilometers squared. So it's substantially larger. Some of the world's highest densities of gorillas in Republic of Congo and also elephant populations, and it's very, very remote. Next slide. So in this huge wetland, perhaps we thought it was like in Indonesia, and maybe there is peat under some of these areas of tropical forest that are flooded nearly year-round. So we trekked in, next. And what you see if you trek far enough in is this beautiful tropical forest with water just above the surface for most of the year. Next. And if you dig underneath, then we see peat. Next. And we spent several years trekking in the forest to try and see where there was peat and where there was not peat. And then we could use remote sensing, satellite imagery to look at where the water was and where the vegetation that is characteristic of having peat and where it's characteristic of not having peat, to make this very first map of the central Congo peatlands, which we then showed was the world's largest tropical peatland. And it stores around 30 billion tons of carbon, which you've heard, but to put that in context, that's 7 times larger amount of carbon than is the carbon in the biggest oil and gas discovery in the world. 7 times larger than the biggest oil and gas discovery in the 21st century worldwide. So a huge amount of carbon, very important. Next. And on the back of that paper, and we work with UNEP, WCMC, World Conservation Monitoring Center, to write a policy brief around it. And this was signed into the Brazzaville Declaration to continue the study of these peatlands and the protection of these peatlands. And that's how I first got involved in the Global Peatlands Initiative, and why I'm here today, because it's an amazing organization network to be involved in. And this sort of set us onto a kind of more policy track as well as a basic science track. Next. And partly on that, next slide, we had a huge multidisciplinary network of scientists involved in Congo peatlands research. I'll show you two results, which I think are very important in thinking about the policy. So when we dug down into the peat and dated the peat, we saw that it started around 20,000 years ago, so older than we first thought. And then there's peat accumulation for more than 10,000 years. And then there's a period where there's almost no peat accumulation. And then the last 2,000 years, rapid peat accumulation. And what we saw when we saw this, that this is highly decomposed peat. And inside the peat, when plants grow, they form leaf waxes, and those leaf waxes don't get decomposed. And the chemical composition of those leaf waxes can tell us what the environment was like at the time when they were formed. And what we saw is that there's a long-term drought in the Congo Basin, same time as when the Sahara stopped being green and turned into a desert. Got drier also in the Congo Basin region. And our modeling work shows that about 50% of the peat was degraded and gone into the atmosphere from this drought. And this drought, this shows that these Congo peatlands are very, very close to the edge of not being a peatland. You're very close to the edge. Next. And it wasn't a one-off. We could see this when we've got less amount of money to spend on radiocarbon dating. We see the same shallower across the DRC side of the peatlands as well. Next. So these peatlands are very, very sensitive to drought and to changes in the water table. And then this is a very new paper where we have the radiocarbon dates of the base of the peat. When did this peatland start forming? And if you just focus on this one, number 3, 42,000 years. So these peatlands have been accumulating peat on the Rookie River at that location for 42,000 years, making them some of the oldest peatlands in the tropics. Next. So we've been doing this work, and people often will say, yeah, okay, so how do we translate this into policy? How do we translate this into protection? Next. So we've been doing a bit more of that kind of work, and that's partly because these peatlands are relatively intact and not under very direct threat like today, but threat to building all around them, particularly oil and gas exploration, logging, and potentially drainage and conversion to oil palm, as we've seen in Southeast Asia. Next. Yeah, that was it. So we had a very nice project funded by the Grantham Foundation, where we, in the Republic of Congo, we brought together different stakeholders, and we interviewed all the stakeholders about what they utilize, what they gained from the peatlands, what their expectations were about the future of the peatlands, what they wanted to happen to the peatlands, and then brought them all together in workshops, including local communities in Brazzaville, to start to think about how all these different stakeholders might agree on what the next steps might be in terms of protection. And the crucial thing that came out of this, it has to be centered around people's livelihoods and access to people's customary and traditional lands. Next. And then I think what's flowed from all this scientific work is Jean-Jacques Bambuta and the Peatland Management Unit in DRC, and starting to produce policies around the peatlands and protection, and crucially this new Kivu-Kinshasa corridor. So this is a proposal by the DRC government of the world's largest protected area, spanning the whole width of the country, from the Kivus in the east all the way through to Kinshasa in the west, which includes most of the central Congo peatlands that are in the DRC. So there's a huge opportunity here with the Kivu-Kinshasa corridor including the peatlands, to have good peatland management inside that much larger protected area concept. In the Republic of Congo, there was a law passed in late 2023 to provide some formal protection to the peatlands, which is part of this very long-term, from the Brazzaville Declaration onwards, of political support, as we've heard from Narcisse, political support for protection of the peatlands in the Republic of Congo, which we are there as the scientists to help support that with scientific evidence. And there's been big investment from ICI, as we've heard, and the Jeff projects, and also on the wider science. And I've got 2 minutes left. Next. And one of the things we did, one of the things the Congo peatlands work really highlighted to us and to many policymakers, is that there's a lot we don't know about the Congo Basin region. So we got the ministers together with scientific advisors, Corneille, who's in the room here, and myself, to write this piece in Nature, signed off by all the ministers of the Central Congo Basin countries, and the scientists, to say we need to invest in science. Next. And that, and to create this Congo Basin Science Initiative to build research and capacity and get investment into science, and that's co-led by Raphael Chimanga in Republic of Congo, in DRC, sorry, and myself. Next. So we're an independent platform to promote long-term investment in science. And we have threefold: transform our understanding, build scientific capacity by training new generation of scientists, and use this for sustainable development in the region. Next. So far, in the last like 2.5 years, we've got $34 million of investment into science for the people, peatlands, and forests of the region. 59 master's, PhD, and postdoc training opportunities that are currently filled, and there are people working from Central Africa. And we had our first conference in January this year with 300 scientists and policy advisors to put science centrally into the frame to make better decisions about protecting these forests and livelihoods at the same time. Next. And my final slide in my final seconds. Our next annual conference, our last one was in Brazzaville. We rotate countries. Our next one will be in Cameroon in January, and you're all very welcome to attend. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Simon. So now we will have Nicole. Where is Nicole? Perfect. So she will present from the Wildlife Conservation Society. She will present on the Patagonian Peatlands Initiative. Then, to give you a little bit of a break, we will put a little video from Siska, from UNEP, and then you can go on with the Venice Agreement. Okay, thank you very much. Do you want me to do it for you?
Sí, por favor. Hola, hola, buenas tardes. Espero que hayan tenido un muy rico almuerzo y que no estén tan dormidos a esta hora. Les voy a estar contando un poquito de la iniciativa de turberas patagónicas. Ahí sí me puedes ayudar con las diapositivas. Y le pusimos a esta parte para que el fogón nos cobije a todos. Y si me das la siguiente. Porque esta iniciativa de turberas patagónicas, que es una comunidad binacional Argentina-Chile que promueve la protección de las turberas de nuestra región, quiero partir con una reflexión de Gemani Molina, una colega y a esta altura amiga perteneciente de la comunidad Shelklam, pueblo indígena de Tierra del Fuego, en que mientras hemos trabajado en esta iniciativa hizo el símil de que cuando uno construye una comunidad es como estar encendiendo un fogón y que al principio son algunos fósforos sueltos, una cajita por ahí esperando hacer una chispa, que esa chispa se encienda, ese fósforo, que se forme una primera fogata y los primeros pasos son bastante solitarios. En general hay pocos componentes, pero que cuando el fogón ya está armado y grande, ese calor atrae a la gente sola. Y ese es el proceso en el que estamos. Esta historia parte del 2011, con una primera mirada binacional en un encuentro organizado por el Ministerio de Medio Ambiente y WSS, en que junta a científicas y científicos de Chile y Argentina trabajando en turberas, para identificar, saber en qué estaban, identificar algunos desafíos y oportunidades. Pero se necesitaron otros 10 años que pasaran para volver a juntarnos. Nos juntamos en el 2021, era pandemia, así que estábamos aprovechando esto que nos estábamos acostumbrando a juntarnos de manera virtual, online, y se empieza a gestar con un pequeño fondo de una fundación alemana, Manfred Hempsen Stiftung, un seminario binacional de turberas, pero ya con una visión de no solamente integrar a científicos y científicos, sino que a toda la comunidad que estaba cuidando estos ecosistemas. Y mientras hacíamos y diseñábamos el espacio y hacíamos el registro, inspirados por el Global Peatlands Initiative, preguntamos, ¿valdrá la pena, les interesa que se forme una iniciativa de turberas patagónicas, una iniciativa que nos junte a todos? Y la gente en el mismo formulario comentó decir sí, sí, sí. Entonces, ese espacio, que iba a ser un día solamente para compartir experiencias, se transformó en un espacio de 2 días. El primer día, el 2 de junio, para celebrar el Día Mundial de las Turberas, participaron 200 personas, que para Patagonia es mucha gente, y el segundo día, el 3 de junio, se juntó alrededor de 45 personas que trabajaban específicamente en el tema de turberas para empezar a diseñar, y por eso pongo el fosforito, porque se empieza a prender este fósforo y dijimos, ok, hagamos una iniciativa, pero ¿qué significa esto? Se comienza a gestar un prototipo de visión y misión, se establecen ámbitos de acción en los que queríamos trabajar, nos separamos en estos grupos, identificamos cuáles eran las principales brechas, desafíos, oportunidades en torno a los ámbitos de acción. Y algunos meses después, en el 2022, nos volvemos a juntar. Entonces era el primer encuentro oficial de la iniciativa de turberas patagónicas, online. Invitamos al Global Peatlands Initiative, habíamos invitado antes al Greifswald-Meyer Center a compartir sus experiencias haciendo comunidad. Y en ese primer encuentro cerramos una visión, cerramos la misión, tuvimos un logo, y participaba a esa altura artistas, miembros de comunidades indígenas, organizaciones de gobierno, ONGs, científicas, científicos, y pensamos que esa fogatita ya estaba agarrando vuelo. Y lo último que decidimos ese día es que el siguiente paso, antes de hacer cualquier cosa, es que un grupo de voluntarios que se propuso ese mismo día iba a trabajar en una propuesta de gobernanza. Y ahí, si me puedes pasar la siguiente. No, está bien ahí. Y entonces todos contentos, grupos de trabajo activados, todo parece ir súper bien, y empiezan a pasar cosas. Y esa llamita, esa fogatita se empieza a apagar. Hay cambios políticos que restringen la participación de algunas entidades de gobierno en uno de los países, y por lo tanto eso, y que muchos de ellos estaban participando muy activamente de estos grupos de trabajo, falta de financiamiento para poder seguir con la labor. Así que nos demoramos 4 años, así que yo no les traigo puras historias exitosas, nos demoramos 4 años en levantar financiamiento para poder cumplir con este compromiso de juntarnos a hacer la propuesta de gobernanza. Porque digamos que pedir recursos para hacer una reunión para gobernanza es cero sexy. Nadie quiere financiar una propuesta de gobernanza. No tiene fotos muy bonitas, no está en la turbera necesariamente. Así que a fines del año pasado, 2025, tuvimos en Punta Arenas, en Chile, el taller de elaboración con las 7 organizaciones que se habían comprometido voluntariamente, 9 personas. ¿Me puedes pasar la siguiente? Y esta gobernanza se empieza a pensar como la iniciativa como un ecosistema. Y en este ecosistema, por supuesto, una turbera, tenemos la visión y la misión, ¿cierto?, en el cielo, ahí mirando hacia adelante, y por supuesto bien arraigada en principios y lineamientos comunes, porque siendo una iniciativa con actores tan diversos, todos tenemos perspectivas muy distintas de qué es lo que hay que hacer y cómo hay que hacerlo para proteger las turberas, pero todos compartiendo una visión general, y por lo tanto era súper importante que estos principios y lineamientos fueran comunes para todos. ¿Se puede ir hacia atrás? Sí, por favor. Eso. Entonces se hace primer borrador, se presenta, se da un tiempo para ajustes, se vuelve a revisar y finalmente en una reunión se valida esa propuesta y muy felizmente la semana pasada, el miércoles, tuvimos nuestra primera asamblea de la iniciativa de turberas patagónicas, así que de nuevo estamos, después de haber pasado la fogatita chica, se extinguió, volviendo a encender el fósforo, estamos de nuevo encendiendo esa fogata y, si me pasas la siguiente, una más. Elegimos un comité directivo, que a mí me pone muy contenta porque empieza a pasar a realmente gestionarse esto, y este comité directivo son estas 4 poderosas y maravillosas mujeres que ven aquí. Los grupos de ámbitos de acción son 4, pero entendemos que en este estado, recién partiendo, este comité directivo no va a ser el comité directivo que estábamos pensando y que hoy día está completo desarrollado en la estructura de gobernanza, sino que una versión más pequeña de este. Entonces, Bárbara Saavedra está a cargo de 2 grupos, ámbitos de acción, contribución a políticas públicas y generación de conocimiento. Rita de Lofiego, de Argentina, en educación y sensibilización y gestión del territorio. Adriana Urciola como la coordinadora de país de Argentina y Gemani Molina como la coordinadora en Chile. Así que esas van a ser las personas que van a estar liderando esto ahora. Si me pasas la siguiente. Y algo que queríamos compartir son las cosas que hemos ido aprendiendo. Algo de lo mucho. Aprovechar la virtualidad. Para nosotros fue súper importante, sobre todo con pocos recursos, en lugares muy distantes y de difícil acceso en Patagonia, aprovechar esos espacios que nos da y habernos acostumbrado en el COVID, en la pandemia, de poder conectarnos online, que antes no pasaba. Eso fue fundamental, pero también valorar el estar juntos. No pasa lo mismo, los procesos no son iguales cuando uno nunca se ve. Y por eso reuniones como esta, en que uno está y tiene otro tipo de conversaciones, no son las 2 horas o 3 horas que pasamos juntos online, mientras alguien está también respondiendo un correo. Así que valorar el estar juntos, sobre todo para algunos pasos muy críticos. Seguimos sosteniendo que es importante, aunque nos demoremos más en levantar esos recursos. Soltarse a los ritmos y a tener un poco de paciencia. A veces queremos que las cosas avancen más rápido de lo que realmente pueden pasar, y aquí es como llegar a lo de la turbera, ¿no? Para que una turbera crezca bien, hay que darle su tiempo y toma su tiempo. Cualquier fundación requiere su tiempo, entonces a veces hay que soltar un poquito, pero también aprovechar el momentum. Y eso creo que desaprovechamos. Ahí lo puse en la oportunidad en esos 4 años. Espero que no nos pase de nuevo para que ese fuego siga creciendo. Saber empezar de nuevo. No pasa nada. En vez de decir, oh, fracasó todo porque no nos hemos juntado hace muchos años, siempre podemos empezar de nuevo. Y está claro que sigue habiendo gente interesada y dispuesta a tomar la posta, y que está bien comenzar chiquitito. Que si bien en esta propuesta de gobernanza tenemos una estructura mucho más robusta de aquella que podemos sostener ahora, está todo bien y esperamos que pueda más adelante seguir creciendo. Si me pasas la siguiente. Eso, si quieren saber un poquito más, pueden sacar una foto de ese código QR, y aquí hay algunas fotitos de esas maravillosas turberas de Patagonia y de la gente que está todos los días ahí cuidándola. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Don't go too far, because we will hear again from you on the Venice Agreement. But first, we have a little video from Siska from our team in UNEP.
I'm Leonard Akwan from Ecofine, Kenya. I am the host of the 3rd meeting of Venice Agreement in Kisumu, and today we took a field trip to Yala, and right behind me is Yala River, which gives birth to Yala wetland, which is one of the largest papyrus peatlands in Kenya. For those who are attending the Global Peatlands Initiative meeting in Peru, I say Jambo, I say Abari, enjoy, and I'm very happy that this is hosted by the Global Peatlands Initiative through UNEP and the Ministry of Environment of Peru. Enjoy, asanteni.
I'm gonna change into English, and I changed my outfit so we can all pretend I'm a different person. Sorry you have to hear from me again, but I want to share with you a little bit about the Venice Agreement that has been being mentioned several times in the past 2 days, which gets me really excited. Okay. We'll wait 1 second while the slides. Yeah, some of you have been kind of doing my job already, which I thank, because we don't have much time. But the Venice Agreement is a community, and it's a community tool. And it has been co-funded by artists, by stewards, by people in the government, by NGOs, by I see some faces here, and several of you have already been part of this Venice community. Yes, and I wanted to share the last part because, and I'm going to read it textually, but it's invite us to reimagine conservation as a shared responsibility, one rooted not only in ecological data, but also in ancestral memory, spiritual connection, and cultural continuity. So if you give me the next one. Just to give a little background and rewind a bit, this Patagonian peatlands are the ones where everything started. So many years ago, through nomadic collective research group rooted in the arts called Ensayos, and Camila Marambio being one of her, she wouldn't like me to say leaders, but pushing for this, started working in Tierra del Fuego, this is specifically Caruquinca Park from WCS on the Chilean side, and started working with peatlands. And this was kind of at the same time as the Patagonian Peatland Initiative, Iniciativa de Turberas Patagónicas, that I just told you about, was also happening. And since that movement was already in itself trying to be a transdisciplinary community, and everything was being developed jointly, like even this is the agenda for the event, and as you can see, there were artists behind it thinking about how to communicate the values of peatlands within that. So it wasn't only a design process as something to make it look nice, but really thinking together how to make this happen. So while that was happening, there was the Venice Art Biennale. If you, like myself, are not from the arts world, they like to say it's like the Olympics of the art. So it happens biennially, so every 2 years they gather in Venice, and many of the countries have a pavilion in which they showcase a specific art project. So Camila Marambio from Ensayos and Bárbara Saavedra from WCS had been working together in Patagonia and in Caruquinca, as I was mentioning, started thinking, what if we bring peatlands into Venice, into the Biennale, into this art world? So luckily, they were successful. Camila was the curator of that project, and was the first time Chile brought conjunto, a mix of artists, not only one artist, but incorporating, as Diana was saying yesterday, incorporating sound and images and architecture and moss and smell into this, we like to call it ship. It was a conservation ship. So it wasn't just about arts, it was bringing peatland conservation, Patagonian peatland conservation, into this art world. And that was itself a research also question. It was gathered between and participated the Shelgnan people of Tierra del Fuego and researchers. The Greifswald-Meyer Center brought the moss that were growing for 8 months in that place. So this is where it all started. So it was, okay, we're in Venice. This is getting traction from the art world. This is about conservation. Why don't we take the chance to bring people from different parts of the world that already come, many of them, to see all the art in Venice and commit to peatland conservation. And you see the name is Venice Agreement, so it's a huge word. We got Paris Agreement, so normally it's really top-down approaches using this big agreement word. If you can give me the other one. So this was just the other way around. I want to share with you the methodology, because since we first started thinking and organizing this event, us coming from the south, the global south, and the very, very south tip in Tierra del Fuego, many times we feel really invisible and not represented in all the arenas where big decisions are taking place. So from the very start, we were thinking how to, I don't know how you say this, democratize participation. So one idea that we had is creating underground workshops. They're gonna be called now local workshops, but basically these are self-organized, small, local workshops that respond to the same questions, to the same challenges that we're going to be addressed in the international workshop that time in Venice. It can be online, it can be hybrid. We hope they're in person in a peatland. So they can be anywhere in the world. You just register and you can do them. And then you have the international workshop around June 2nd that started in Venice, but then it has been in Torres Vedras in Portugal in 2024 and in Kisumu just last month. So how does this happen? And don't worry, I'm not intending for you to read that. So the local workshops or underground workshops need to happen before the international workshop. And why is this? Because we really need all that experience and gatherings to be systematized, to be brought into the agenda of the international workshop. So basically the international workshop acts kind of like an extra local workshop, just with people coming from different places of the world. So how you participate in a local workshop? You register to do one. You get a kit, so you don't even have to do much. You get a kit with all the materials, with a suggested agenda. You can change it, you can keep it. You do your workshop, you submit your results, and then those results are gathered, are systematized, included in the international workshop agenda, and to participate in the international workshop. In any place, any VA member can offer their peatlands to be a host. That gets decided, a call gets out, you register. We try to leverage money for people to attend because, again, Global South, we know that it's really hard for people to attend different instances. And we make sure that there are quotas, so people who attend represents also the diversity of the Venice Agreement. So regarding quotas, geographical quotas, background, gender, and other criteria. So VA numbers for you who are still awake and like numbers. So we've been had already 43, 44 local workshops in the past 3 gatherings. And in the last one, 2026, that happened a month ago, we were in total 277 people who participated within the 18 underground workshops and the gathering in Kisumu. And extra 5 online gatherings. We do a pre-gathering and a post-gathering. The pre-gathering, we decide together what we want to achieve in the big event, and in the post one, we share the results. And the VI is a tool. And this is part of our tool. This is the introduction. Any agreement has an introduction. For us, it's a poem. I wanted to read it to you, but fortunately I won't have the time, so please read it afterwards. If you can give me the next one. And this poem is within a poster that changes every time we get together and holds whatever has been decided or shared through that encounter. And the poster then has the poem, introduction, and then what we need when working with peatlands, such as immediate and effective protection of healthy peatlands, or local vocabularies and inventories of global peatlands, and what we value when working with peatlands. But now the Venice Agreement also has a website as part of complementing the poster tool, and is just launched a peatland community map. So most of you are not yet on the map. If you're missing from the map, this is the website, and please share about the local communities, your local work. We want all local work actions on peatland protections, hopefully to be there. And coming soon, hopefully before December, because we're a voluntary group, the how-to menus. What is this? It was one of the objectives of this year's gathering, developing a menu on the how-tos, on how to achieve these needs and the challenges that peatlands face. Yeah, in 10 seconds, we already know where the next gathering will be, so we're really happy about it, because it's in Chiloé Island in Chile, so you're all really welcome. You can, remember, you can participate organizing an underground workshop or going to Chile. We'll be really happy to have you there, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Nico. Up next is Elizabeth Rams-Beltran from GMC, who will present on the European Peatlands Initiative. Do you want me to do that?
Yes, please. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Julie. So, yes, I'm Elizabeth Rams-Beltran, and I'm presenting mostly on behalf of Eurosite, the European Land Conservation Network. So Marina Shkunza and Harm Schouten, who couldn't be here with us, but maybe they are online and have been leading this initiative together with my colleague Jan Peters. So why the initiative? Well, first of all, there's many, like hundreds of national and EU peatland projects that are already existing. But of course, the exchange, visibility, and upscaling remain limited. And there's governments and the European Commission and other stakeholders who need this shared space to connect policy, science, practice, and finance. Restoration funding also in Europe still remains a key barrier, alongside the need for clear long-term incentives towards sustainable practices. And particularly, there's a need for a stronger cooperation on policy coherence and sustainable management, such as the development of paludiculture value chains. So that's why the EPI, the European Peatland Initiative, was born. And the vision is a strong European network uniting governments, the European Commission, and stakeholders to conserve, restore, and wisely use peatlands for biodiversity, clean water, sustainable livelihoods, and climate resilience and neutrality, which we believe it's well aligned to the GPI vision. And a bit about the journey of the EPI. So the dialogues towards the EPI started at COP26 in 2021 at the Peatlands Pavilion. Then there was an exploratory study, and shortly after, the OIKI project building the EPI started, implemented by 4 partners. So the Eurosite, together with us at the Michael Suko Foundation, together with the European Landowners Organization and CE Web for Biodiversity, supported also by the European Climate Initiative of the German government, who really supported the process and coordination. And during this process, there was two notable events. The first one that took place in May 2023, where there was the EPI development meeting in Dublin that really brought together actors into the same page. And a year later at Bonn, where more than 30 participants from 13 different countries, together with the EU Commission, DGs for Climate and Environment, and the GPI came together to discuss different European peatland strategies, status, progress, and opportunities for further collaboration. A bit later, there was some semi-structured interviews with different government representatives, and notably last year, in October 2025, there was the creation of the preparatory group that is currently busy defining the governance structure, membership, steering committee, and other important elements of this initiative. And it's planned that if all goes well, they could launch officially the initiative in September, I think in the Power to the Peatlands conference, and present the work plan for the next 4 years. So what is the EPI? As of now, it's a pan-European stakeholder network, and it's composed of many different members from governments and agencies, also the European Commission, national and regional initiatives, as well as NGO, research and academia, and very importantly also with the farmer and landowner organizations. And it's built along 5 main thematic pillars. The first and very important one is the community, and for that there was a community platform built on Slack that really helps link the different initiatives and also have an overview of events and campaigns taking place in Europe. And then there's other thematic pillars on policy, science, also on restoration and management, and another one on finance. Next slide, please. Yeah, so some of the lessons thus far that have been shared to bring here. So what really worked, that there was early government buy-in and really high interest from the governments to exchange. And the OICI, the European Climate Initiative support, really helped to facilitate this process. Also the workshops and semi-structured interviews help clarify the niche. And the preparatory group is seen really as a turning point to advance the decision-making and moving this thing forward. Still, what was difficult is that no single government stepped forward to carry the initiative. And of course, different sectors and countries moving at different speeds. So building a common language across the very different sectors took time, and also the political timing and polarization slowed down the momentum. And what remains difficult moving forward is, as we've heard also from the other initiatives before, it's the funding, long-term funding for the initiative itself to do all this coordination work. Also finding this governance model that can be open but also operational, that all stakeholders can feel comfortable to work together, and moving from this community building to long-term delivery. And some key messages. So the EPI has really created this space for dialogue across sectors, public and private stakeholders, with many, many countries at the European, in Europe and in very different peatland contexts. And the European government representatives found this platform to exchange on peatland policies and strategies, and they could hear the views from both science and civil society. And the next step is really to formalize the structure, keep building the community that in the future could help even more amplify these project level results into strategic direction at the European level to scale up peatland conservation, restoration, and wise use. And last but not least, it was also very relevant the GPI advisory support that gave legitimacy and also inspiration throughout the EPI process. And I end with some QR codes of the EPI community platform, Slack, and also some very nice videos that were developed during the OIKI project by the European Landowner Organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. So now time for discussion. Diana, do you want to?
Thank you so much for those examples. As we can see, and what we were trying to also encourage is the creation of these linked in initiatives, because some topics need focus group that's going to tackle the issue. Some require transboundary collaboration and a special local effort that's contextualized. Some also offer an opportunity to get additional support. One message I can hear very clearly is collaboration and coordination needs funding, and actually coordination investment or investment in these networks is actually not only cost savings, but it's also cost effective. Because, for example, you see the European Peatlands Initiative and Patagonia Peatlands Initiative have derived the approach which took the Global Peatlands Initiative quite a while to develop. And they've adapted it. I've shared all of the resources, governance, structure, context, everything with these teams to develop their own bespoke initiative for their own special group. And as Simon's story told, starting off with a small Congo Peat network, which was initially a project, and bounced out into a network, and now actually is a Congo Basin science initiative, is something that we try to foster. The seeds of the ideas that are being sparked in the room are something that we all need to generate, we all need to nurture, and we all need to be able to be there for each other, to respond to questions, to share our resource kits or our structures without, of course, any expectation of reciprocity, right? Because what is our mission? To save peatlands as the largest organic carbon stock in the world. What is our vision? To get to no net emissions, and that means this support for other impactful initiatives, programs, networks that also will benefit from more local action. We have also, as a community, the Global Peatlands Initiative, benefited from that knowledge, those approaches also coming back into the initiative for the global community. So it doesn't just stay there in the smaller group, but it actually can come back up into the Global Peatlands Initiative knowledge base and be shared with others. I'd like to just open the floor. We're going to try to sort of make some notes, or if you don't have time to speak or you're thinking about it as you go, do make a note on your flip, on these sticky notes. And just to talk about what other sort of initiatives that we haven't had the floor, people take the floor here today, are available and that people should know about. So if you're involved in an initiative, or if you think there should be an initiative or a topic, a place, a space, are there ideas about what is already out there or what needs to be out there in the community? And while you're thinking, I can share from another initiative that is started also as sort of a research science collaboration project called the Can Peat Project. That's Canadian Peatlands Project, which looks at filling a science gap by doing peatlands mapping, also consolidated and filling knowledge gaps on emissions, on modeling. It has also a stream on how to integrate Indigenous knowledge and weave that Indigenous knowledge not only into the science space for decisions, but also into an advisory group. So there's a science advisory group, which I have the honor to be on, and then there's an Indigenous leadership group, and then there's a wider policy group as well that helps steer and guide this Canadian Peatlands project, which has also already created this Canadian Peatlands network, which will likely turn into an initiative. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Román Baigún from Wetlands International, office in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And I do think we need an initiative for the Puna as a whole ecosystem, because that includes many of the peatlands we've been talking in the Andes yesterday and today, and lots of people depend on the health of these ecosystems. So we are launching this initiative along Peru, Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. We are still putting it together, but I think it's a great place where to share it, isn't it? And I won't speak anymore, because tomorrow I will just give a hint of what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that, especially since we have a lot of people that are working on the mountain peatland space, including, I believe FAO already mentioned, the South American Mountain Patagonia Peatlands project, which will also be an opportunity to bring that across the Andes. Thank you so much for that. And yes, we look forward to your example tomorrow. Anyone else? We know that there's a Mongolia Peatlands Initiative, which is an effort by the Mongolian government, a number of departments working together. And if you'd like to take the floor to share a little bit more, feel free to open your mic. I saw your hand go up, Hans, but you would like to say something, Hans, as well? No.
Yeah, it is something different maybe, but I wanted to point at that since a few months a new pillar under the Greifswald Meyer Center is the Peatland Library. Yeah. We have taken the initiative to found a peatland library that has as an aim to collect everything that everywhere in all times has been written about peatlands on one spot. We have at the moment at least 50,000 publications that deal with peatlands. We collect not only natural sciences, but also history, poetry, art, etc., from the conviction that we will not save the peatlands of the world only with exact facts, but also with emotion and beauty, etc. And it is internationally used. It is a presence library. We do not lend books out because then they disappear too fast, but you can visit us. What we try to do is we digitalize everything that is digitalizable. That is not always as simple because the copyright laws in Germany are rather strict. We get a lot of libraries donated by peatland scientists and other people, so we have also a lot of doublets which we are willingly providing to people from newly peat countries who need books. So if you are looking for specific things, just contact me and we will try whether we can provide them either as hard copies or as digital copies. For limited purposes, we can also scan things that are not available. We have a professional scanner, etc., etc. So that is that we try to bring everything together, but also share it with the world.
Thank you so much, Hans, and we'd love to, then we'll link in, you know, that digitization of Pencil, which is the library, the Peat library, into our knowledge place and space as well, so people can easily find it through the Global Peatlands Initiative website. And yes. Yes, yes, excellent. And I've held some of those precious books. So if you do go there, please do visit the library, which is a labor of love and a really important piece of the story. Do we have anyone else that wants to share a little bit? Any ideas of where we have this Puna initiative, the idea of that? Are there any other places? One idea I've been thinking about, talking about is, you know, we have that International Tropical Peatland Center across that tropical belt. We have also an emerging collaboration across the Arctic. What about the middle there, like that steppe? The Mongolia-China steppe, the Central Europe. I think that ecosystem also is something that needs a special effort. That space in the middle, the missing middle, I like to say, is something that we should think about how we can offer those countries that are, you know, leaning on different languages or leaning on different connections to try to support in. So do keep thinking of those things. If you have some ideas, please jot them down, share them. Just as Nicola was saying on the Venice Agreement, this is a movement, right, of individuals, of activists, of artists, and there's many tools that we have available online, including with the underground workshop kits, which were developed together with a group, that is available for you to share with your community. I think more people are getting interested and activated, so instead of creating your own kit, use what we've got. They're great tools. Adapt them, as Nico said. Adapt them, make them in your own language, or also adapt them to your own unique perspective, and then share them back to us so that when we have someone in another place or space that would benefit from that toolkit, we can also share it with them. Let me pass the microphone back to Julie for the next rapid fire panel. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. So yesterday we had a session on the government-led national pathways to integrate peatlands into NDCs, NBSAPs, and LDN targets. And that was the conversation about what governments have done. And now we're shifting the conversation to the how. So how the GPI partnership and its members have put tools and knowledge and frameworks and partnerships into governments' hands to make that integration possible. So we will hear from three people. First speaker is Alfredo Galvez from UNEP, based in Peru, and then we will have Matt Warren from FAO, and then back to Elizabeth from GMC. Thanks. Over to you.
Muchas gracias. Buenas tardes. Bueno, mi nombre es Alfredo Galvez. Yo soy asesor técnico del Programa de Naciones Unidas para el Medio Ambiente y facilitador nacional de lo que llamamos el NBSAP Accelerator Partnership, que es una alianza justamente para acelerar las estrategias nacionales de diversidad biológica y sus planes de acción. Y justamente en el marco de esta reunión y después de escuchar todas estas excelentes presentaciones de nuestros panelistas, de los colegas, quisiera compartir brevemente lo que el NBSAP hace Y hemos visto hoy pues, soluciones técnicas, herramientas, plataformas, productos de conocimiento de valor relacionados a las turberas. Y la pregunta que yo pondría sobre la mesa para poder hacer esta presentación es cómo logramos que todo ese conocimiento técnico que se está llevando a cabo en el campo pueda llegar a los países y se convierta efectivamente en acciones concretas para la implementación de acuerdos globales como el Acuerdo de París o el Acuerdo Kunming-Montreal. Es precisamente eso lo que hace el NBSAP Accelerator Partnership, que es una iniciativa, una alianza que nació como una respuesta concreta durante la adopción del marco global Kunming-Montreal en la COP15, que los países acordaron justamente crear esta alianza. Eso es lo interesante, es que es una alianza netamente liderada por gobiernos. El Perú es miembro, al igual que 63 países, y los países acordaron en ese momento unas metas extremadamente ambiciosas. Como ustedes saben, el Kunming-Montreal es un marco global sumamente ambicioso al 2030, es decir, con muy poco plazo, y sobre la base de 4 objetivos y 23 metas. Esta NBSAP Accelerator Partnership es liderado por gobiernos de Alemania y Colombia, como pueden ver. Está soportado o financiado por el gobierno alemán a través de 2 ministerios y la Iniciativa Climática Internacional, ICI, también con participación de los fondos de Noruega. ¿Y cómo aceleramos esta implementación? Porque el éxito del marco global no solo va a depender de adoptar nuevas metas, sino de implementarlas a través de las estrategias de diversidad biológica efectivas y sobre todo los planes de acción, que justamente es la ruta de inicio de esta implementación. Nuestra membresía es bastante amplia, como lo he mencionado, somos ya 118 miembros, 63 países, incluyendo la Comisión Europea, 14 instituciones y 41 actores no gubernamentales. Entonces, como ustedes ven, es una plataforma bastante amplia de colaboración, liderada netamente por países y digamos que hay una interrelación, yo le llamo un ecosistema de colaboración muy interesante, y eso es justamente lo que necesitamos. Yo el día de ayer en la primera sesión sobre temas de los gobiernos y el cumplimiento de marcos internacionales, alguno de los ponentes y panelistas mencionó que sería necesario generar plataformas de coordinación donde lo técnico vaya de la mano con lo político y que responda efectivamente a las necesidades de los gobiernos. Pues esto es el NBSAP Accelerator Partnership. Yo quisiera explicar este slide brevemente porque este es justamente digamos lo que resume el corazón del partnership. Tenemos una plataforma de coordinación, un programa de facilitadores que justamente son mecanismos complementarios a todas esas sinergias que generan los países. De los 63 países tenemos 24 con este programa de facilitación, como podemos ver en 2 cohortes en distintas latitudes. En Latinoamérica estamos Perú, Colombia, Ecuador, Panamá, Bolivia y México. Y en segundo lugar tenemos el Matchmaking Mechanism. El Matchmaking Mechanism es nuestro mecanismo principal de colaboración y es probablemente uno de los instrumentos más innovadores. A través de este mecanismo, los países presentan necesidades concretas de apalancamiento de fondos de cooperación internacional de estas más de 63, bueno, digamos 118 actores, y también para asistencia técnica, es decir, soporte técnico específico en aquellas temáticas en las cuales requieran un apoyo adicional en términos de la implementación de las estrategias de diversidad biológica. Y nuestro papel, el mío en concreto como facilitador nacional para Perú, es justamente conectar estas necesidades expresadas por los países a través de una oferta de conocimiento, herramientas, financiamiento y sobre todo capacidades técnicas, ¿no? Siguiente, por favor. En este mapa resumimos lo que es el programa de facilitador. Podrán identificar tal vez alguno de sus países. Solamente están los 24 países donde se tiene el programa de facilitación, porque digamos, estuve conversando con las colegas de Chile hace unos momentos y, por ejemplo, Chile tiene el Matchmaking Mechanism activado como miembro del NBSAB Accelerator Partnership, pero aún no tiene, digamos, este programa de facilitación, ¿no? Como si lo tiene Perú. Entonces, hay un esquema bastante importante, interesante, que se puede estar implementando a través del NBSAB Accelerator Partnership, y nosotros además promovemos paquetes especializados de asistencia técnica, herramientas de aprendizaje entre pares, entre gobiernos pares, y también el fortalecimiento de capacidades, ¿no? En el caso de Perú hemos ya, digamos, presentado alrededor de 7 u 8 solicitudes de matchmaking, una muy específica relacionada a turberas, que gracias a nuestro apoyo el Perú ha conseguido a través del Laboratorio de Biodiversidad de Naciones Unidas, concretamente para ciertos puntos relacionados como, por ejemplo, identificación de turberas, cómo está la situación de las turberas en la región o la medición del carbono, ¿no? Entonces, este constituye uno de los primeros apalancamientos de apoyo que hemos logrado a través del NBSAP Accelerator Partnership. Y esta lámina muestra muy claramente y resume que evidentemente nos encontramos debajo de la sinergia entre las convenciones de Río. Hay una serie de sinergias también que abordan diferentes temas, ¿no? Desde gobernanza, bioeconomía, género, finanzas, colaboración científica. Y también pasamos a la parte de colaboración, ¿no? De cómo los distintos programas de facilitación, el Matchmaking Mechanism, y todo aquello relacionado con la membresía también puede colaborar y puede justamente cumplir debajo de ese gorro, ese sombrero de las 3 convenciones. Y para esta sesión específicamente vemos que este mecanismo de colaboración responde perfectamente a lo que necesitamos hoy día, ¿no? Justamente conectar lo técnico con lo político y responder justamente a los desafíos de, en este caso, el marco global Kunming-Montreal y también el Acuerdo de París. Siguiente, por favor. Y esta es la última lámina, solamente para resumir el apoyo, porque ya estoy en el límite. A la fecha hemos recibido 112 solicitudes de Matchmaking Mechanism. Son 34 países que han ingresado a estas solicitudes. Se ha recibido un apoyo total de más del 50% de las solicitudes, lo cual es bastante exitoso, digamos, en términos de una iniciativa tan joven. En el Perú solamente tenemos 6 meses de este programa de facilitación, y nuestra idea justamente es contribuir no solo con el marco global Kunming-Montreal, sino también alinear la estrategia nacional, las estrategias con los gobiernos subnacionales, bajo los enfoques de todo gobierno y toda sociedad. Y creo que, en otras palabras, las turberas, que es justamente la temática que nos congrega el día de hoy, representan una oportunidad extraordinaria en sí, ¿no? Porque su conservación no solo contribuye con las NDCs, el Acuerdo de París, sino también con la implementación de las estrategias nacionales de diversidad, con ese marco global tan ambicioso Kunming-Montreal al 2030. Y el desafío ya no consiste en generar justamente más herramientas, sino las herramientas existen. El verdadero desafío consiste en conectarla con prioridades nacionales reales de alto impacto para acelerar su implementación. Muchas gracias.
Next up is you, Matt, from FAO. Do you want to do this?
Yeah, sure. Yes. Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity. And thank you for organizing UNEP and MINAM and the government of Peru. This has been really a lot of inspiring discussion and presentations. So yeah, I'm going to present just a little bit of mainly just kind of ideas and lessons learned and key messages from our experience working with countries to integrate peatlands into climate commitments. But I'd like to start out, I work with the Forest and Climate team in the Forestry Division at FAO, and we're working together with the Office of Climate Change, Biodiversity and the Environment to make sure that wetlands, peatlands, and mangroves are included in a very large, comprehensive analysis of how agri-food systems are included in these kinds of commitments. So next slide, please. So we extracted some of the data from the wetlands in anticipation of the Ramsar COP last year. And once we see the figure, it'll show you that, one thing is, it's best not to fixate on the numbers because they change depending on definitions and assumptions and methods to really do this kind of analysis. And this is also building on a lot of work that Elizabeth had been doing when she was with FAO and also, of course, Hans. But what we see is, basically in the adaptation actions portion of the NDCs, we have quite a few countries that actually 55% of the countries where wetlands are mentioned, right? Of those, we have 9 where we have specific peatlands actions mentioned, and I think a lot of those countries are GPI members, right? And here, and we heard from there yesterday. So, that's really, they're really the front runners, the early movers, and we want to expand those numbers. One thing that we see, though, is that mangroves are mentioned specifically in 50. And I think that really shows how the mangrove community has communicated very effectively with the climate change community on how to get mangroves integrated into these. Of course, mangroves are very attractive for adaptation and mitigation as well. And then it also, I think it shows the importance of having that peatland language, just the word peatland. So it's identifying peatlands as a strategic critical ecosystem. And it separates peatlands, it distinguishes them from all of the other types of wetlands as well. So if it's wetlands and peatlands, a very small change in language can have a big impact for the peatlands community because then we can use that to leverage our opportunities. Next slide, please. So we see the same kind of trends for mitigation. And I think, there's a lot of, to me, in my mind, I think of this as kind of like a 3-stage process where you have first, the important thing is just mention, just acknowledgements, just including some language. Second, beyond just acknowledgement, we have an assessment of the peatlands, knowing where they are, knowing what their status is, and you need that information to move to a third step, which is setting very specific targets and having monitoring system in place so that you can track progress towards those targets. And so the countries, we're seeing countries, some in the front runners, starting to get to that third. The kind of assessment. So, we're kind of looking at these peatland countries, all are in their own trajectory. They're all at different stages, so we have to adapt to that when we engage these countries. Next, please. So we have, one thing that's striking to me is these tools we have for policy and advocacy to try to communicate to the importance of peatlands to the pen holders who are actually writing these commitments. It's striking that even from the very early, even pre-GPI, when the FAO publication that was from the Mitigation of Climate Change in Agriculture program, which some of you were involved in, a lot of those messages haven't changed. Even the early GPI publications, those messages haven't changed either. And so if you look back on them, all of the priorities, all of the processes, everything is still pretty much consistent. And if we feel like they're outdated, we could consider a new edition, or we could be taking this information, adapting it to country contexts, and using those for advocacy. So let's not reinvent the wheel. We have a lot of information from the GPI. We can use it for advocacy. So I'm glad that we had that, the Alfredo presented on the NBS NBSAP accelerator. We have other opportunities to engage through like the NDC partnership, UN RED, the ecosystem restoration frame, Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. There's a lot of spaces where we need to infiltrate and we need to spread the peatlands message. And it's the same as kind of entry points. I see how peatlands are very cross-cutting. So We need to bring the peatlands message to the mountain community, to the drylands communities, where peatlands are very important in fragile dryland areas. So we really have to spread our message to these other groups, because we're so cross-cutting to agriculture, to mountains, to drylands, etc. We've heard a little bit about the importance of champions. So if we can get one person that's on the inside to be spreading the message of the importance of peatlands in these commitments, it can have a huge impact. Just that one person can have a huge impact of just advocating for the importance of peatlands. We also have more opportunities to link to the transparency framework, the enhanced transparency framework, because we can look at where in those frameworks, for example, where peatlands are missing from greenhouse gas inventories, or those transparency frameworks often define priorities or define blind spots or data gaps or knowledge gaps, and we can link peatlands into that process as well. The other thing I skipped over was the challenge of that these are ongoing processes. So we have to be adaptable, because a lot of our projects or our points of intervention, they don't correspond exactly when it's the beginning of a new cycle. And a lot of times the governments are under very, very tight deadlines. And so you have to be ready to kind of just jump in, adapt, and get the peatlands message across, meeting them where they are in that process, and that can be quite challenging. And then finally, we need to move from just mentions and vague language to very specific targets and very specific actions. And that's kind of, I think, the next step, because going back to the acknowledgement is great, but we really need to have specific language in there if it's going to be affected. And I think this is so, just some of the ways that FAO supports these processes, mainly are through the development of these mapping, monitoring, and MRV systems, which I'll be talking about more tomorrow. And these are really the foundation for the processing part, the target setting and the monitoring component. And again, contributing to the transparency frameworks and integrating transparency into the capacity development activities, so that the monitoring systems of the countries towards the NDC goals meet these kind of minimum, meet the principles for transparency and IPCC good practice. And then finally, this is like walking through a peatland. A slow, long-term process is necessary to achieve the kind of systemic change we're looking for. So we have to acknowledge that and keep in mind these are long-term processes. So thanks a lot, and happy to answer any questions later. Thank you.
And now back to you, Elizabeth, on the next presentation. Yeah.
So, hello, it's me again, but now really presenting a lot of the work that my colleagues at the Kreiswaldmeier Center have been moving forward for a long time, and particularly Samer El Shehawi and Cristina Malpica Pineros and Jan Petas. So I will repeat a bit of what Matt already said, because we think that recognition is really the first step, and that peatlands are explicitly mentioned in national commitments is really important, and what really opens the door to peatland integration. But then, of course, we need evidence, and to be able to define what is the extent and condition of the peatlands, we also need a definition of what counts as a peatland or not, and then so that we can see also where change occur or might occur. But we also need methods, and methods that can be practical and affordable to monitor, estimate emissions, assess biodiversity, or report changes over time. But very importantly, there needs to be these technical partnerships and support that help countries build this step by step. And I want to bring two recent examples of the support that GMC has providing to countries, and the first one is from Belize, and I think Belize is the only nation so far to have peatlands included in their NDC, and I think it's a great example that countries can have explicit time-bound targets even before the actual long process of integration into the national monitoring system takes place. And a lot of the technical work behind this includes a peatland map validation, defining a national peatland definition, and finding the synergies, for example, in this case, with coastal ecosystems, and especially mangroves, because there was a lot of work already done on mangroves, but then they found peat on them, and they need to find the synergies and limitations. And we've been exploring a lot of the MRV systems and options for reporting under the UNFCCC, particularly using the IPCC wetland supplement that we have already for more than 12 years, but still many countries are not using, but also understand the overlap and limitations that these guidance have, and advocate, because we know that right now these guidance don't reflect the reality of many countries. And we have gathered a lot of data on the last 12 years, and we need to support countries, and it's really a challenge for many of them to follow this guidance. So I wanted to highlight this. And here you have some images, for example, of the field campaigns that took place in Belize in 2024-2025, all across the coast and the country, but also on the inland, where there was some field campaigns, and the results of which were then validated in a workshop that brought together many stakeholders in the country. And well, this was, of course, in collaboration with the Belize Forest Department and also the Coastal Zone Management Authority and Institute and the Pew Charitable Trust. And the second example, which we heard briefly yesterday from Madame Lucy, comes from Uganda and Rwanda. So we have this sustainable peatland management for people, climate and biodiversity, or the Peat for People project, which is now being implemented with GIZ together with FAO and us, the Michael Suko Foundation, partner in the Greifswald-Meyer Center, together with the Ministry of Water and Environment of Uganda and the Ministry of Environment of Rwanda, which is commissioned also by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, or BMZ. And the first, one of the goals in Output 1 is that governments possess these technical tools to make policy decisions regarding the sustainable management of peatlands. And some of the activities that we've been supporting include the ground truthing to improve the national peatland map, but also a lot of activities in a demonstration pilot site where we are testing cost-effective MRV system, including low-cost greenhouse gas chamber and subsidence, also eco-hydrological regulation functions and monitoring, as well as peatland-specific biodiversity monitoring protocols. And there's a lot more happening. We also have some fellowships for national experts on peatland mapping, monitoring, and biodiversity protocols. There's also an upcoming summer school for doctoral and master's students. And very important also, a peatland community of practice, for example, in Uganda, that has been a key instrument in the country towards a peatland definition, and much more. But here you have some images of this first campaign and testing of the low-cost chambers, where we brought together really key experts from the GMC together with the national experts, and then also presenting these tools in bigger events. So here we see the Permanent Secretary of Uganda and the German ambassador from the Embassy of Germany presenting these tools. And to summarize, so the GMC tools that make this integration possible, well, we've already heard quite a lot, but yeah, so the GMC is maintaining this global peatland database, so countries don't need to start from zero if they don't have to. This can provide a first basis where the national data may still be limited. Also, the peatland library, as Hans said, which represents really the largest collection of peatland knowledge from across the globe, because let's remember that still a lot of information, it's only on print, only books, and we cannot afford to lose all that knowledge, and it's really valuable that somebody collects it and keeps it, even when people pass away, unfortunately. And we provide also a lot of field validation and mapping support, so combining of these global data sets with national ground truthing through capacity building of the national teams, but also these practical and affordable monitoring approaches, just as the Chasey Loco chamber that they have developed also under the Pit for People, because in many tropical countries, the very expensive analyzers are often a major barrier to move this work forward. So thank you very much. Merci. Yeah. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. So now we have 30 minutes for discussion before the coffee break. And I will give you the mic, Diane.
It's okay. Thanks, everyone, for those quick little snippets. Definitely very interesting opportunities. We know I wanted to also invite some of our colleagues that are working on, the NBSAP Accelerator. You know, what as a community, as the Global Peatlands Initiative, do we have already that could be that toolkit? Of course, they've got our Global Peatlands Assessment, they've got our policy summary for policymakers, they have our hotspot atlases. But then, you know, what else? I noticed on Elspeth's last slide, the idea of the biodiversity protocols, biodiversity monitoring protocols. I think that we also miss the concept of spaces, diversity of spaces. That's also biodiversity, right? We always think about, you know, what's in there, what species do we have, what vegetative ecological differences do we have, but let's not also forget to mention the diversity of peatland ecosystems as a real critical contribution to biodiversity overall. Are there any questions in the room for the speakers on the tools, on the approaches, on the assets that are available? I'd love to know a little bit more details about what the upcoming publication of FAO will be. What is in that publication? What does it include, so that we can also, as a community, start to prepare people for this asset that's going to be launched? And do you know the dates of when it'll be launched? Matt? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. And I know we've presented it a lot. I know that it's been kind of this evolving analysis and constantly updated analysis. One thing we're really trying to be sure of is that we're aligned with this overall larger report, and which is quite interesting, because they've actually been working on automating the process, so writing the AI code so that whenever there's a new document uploaded to the UNFCCC website, it'll be scanned for you know, for many different things, and one of them we're making sure is that peatlands and wetlands and peatland related terms are included in that kind of analysis. So what we're aiming for initially is kind of a short briefing document that would include those kind of wetlands and peatlands keywords into the NDCs only, just NDCs, but adaptation related actions embedded in the NDCs, and also the mitigation aspects as well. So we don't have a specific publication date yet, but it is forthcoming, and we look forward to finishing up that summary so that we can share it and get it out as kind of a snapshot. Because as I mentioned before, like these are, constantly in a revision process. NDCs can be enhanced in any time. So, it's really just a working document, I guess. But we do want, we'd like to see that kind of snapshot briefing type document out. I think those have been very useful for these kinds of dialogues with policymakers. And, going back to what I mentioned earlier, just all of this, we really need to tap this incredible amount of information that the GPI has generated over these 10 years. And we saw that in the knowledge management section. And we can, repackage that information in these, geopolitically times have changed. As we saw earlier as well, with, sorry, I think it was, sorry, I apologize, I missed the name of the gentleman from Colombia, but David, sí, gracias, gracias.
Yeah.
David's presentation, changing the language to speak to different audiences, but it's also changing the language to speak to different political agendas, because we can convey the same, this messages, but just in different ways. So we can use the existing GPI information to do that, but it does have to be translated into these new languages to fit our geopolitical realities and also just our, the changing times. So thanks.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're ready to rally around those things that are going to be coming out from each and every one of us. Please do let us know if we can. We like to plan. We're planners. Sorry. But, we need a little bit of prep time so that we can get and leverage not only the Global Peatlands Initiative community, but also, we're responsible for feeding the UN Decade as well on ecosystems on all of the peatlands content there. And also, of course, all of our UNEP channels and partnerships. So we noticed as well, some of these summaries I find also miss like the details. And sometimes we have countries that just need some inspiration or some language. I mean, many people are using our ChatGPT or Claude or our AI tools to not start from ground zero. But we could also share a lot more about what language is needed for some of these effective activities. Peru, of course, has already included peatlands in their NDC in the mitigation side, and they're asking for support and working on that adaptation side of the NDC. And sometimes it's just as simple as sharing the language, sharing the actions, so that those can be considered instead of starting from ground zero and workshopping it over months and months. Of course, participation and consultation and buy-in and a collective voice is important. Sometimes it's easier to put about 10 or 20 things on the deck and workshop that instead of starting from that blank page. And that's what we're trying to offer as well through the Global Peatlands Initiative. Don't struggle. Don't start with the blank page, because there's someone in our partnership that definitely has some experience, including, on those governance arrangements, the steering committee setup, all of those tools and tricks. Thanks, Hans. And please interrupt, put your hand up. And then Eva, thank you.
Yes, the talk of Matthew was, of course, very interesting, because he showed that for one reason or another, and we know about this reason, peatlands are not so attractive as a language stuff compared to mangroves. And that is, of course, a really difficulty that we have, that during the centuries, all words associated with peat and peatlands have got a very negative connotation.
Yes.
We must be aware that it has not been the case always. We are studying at the moment all publications, everything that has been written before 500 AD in the world. So the entire Mesopotamian, the Egyptian, the Greek, the Hebrew, the Latin. And it appears to be that in the beginning of writing and thinking, peatlands were very positive. They had a very positive connotation, and only it changed with the Romans. In Roman time, and it has persisted since then. And it is, of course, necessary for reaching our aim that the words associated with peatlands, bogs, mires, they have very negative connotation, that they get a new positive connotation. And that's why the work of groups like Repeat and the Venice Agreement and all these things are so important. We have to change the mindset of what people think when they hear words associated with peatlands. Because if we do not do that, we will have very difficulties to achieve what we want.
Yeah, thanks so much, Hans. I think that's also why I rallied, this community around the word peatlands, even though there were so many people in the room that were stuck on mires, on bogs. Peatlands is also this place where we can create that language neutrality. And if you haven't gone over to Eva, if you haven't heard Hans's talk on the flow of language, I was there when you spoke about the language. I want to actually bring that recording and share it with everyone. It's phenomenal. Eva?
Thank you. Well, we have been talking about NDCs and NBSAPs, and LDN were also present somehow in some of the presentations. They were also present yesterday. But because we were asking also for ambassadors, what role can the people in this room play when they walk into different rooms from this and speak up for peatlands? If any of you, or I guess your governments are attending the UN CCD COP in Mongolia, I would kindly request to make peatlands visible also there for land degradation neutrality, a huge role, increasing role of peatlands with climate change and increasing land degradation. And if peatlands are struggling a bit to go up in these statistics in the NDCs, you can't imagine in the LDNs, no?
Yeah, a very complex place. There will be definitely groups, including the Peatland Breakthrough, that I believe have some ideas about, and Wetlands International specifically, about how we can raise peatlands through there. The Mongolian delegation also has a GEF project on peatlands, and there will be, it's connected to this, the herders. There's a rangelands and a herders coming together. That's going to happen pre the COP in Ulaanbaatar. So we have actually some Sami reindeer herders that know peatlands well as other communities in Mongolia that are pastoralists or nomadic herders coming together, and that's definitely a place and a space. If you're interested, we could try to collaborate and do something together, of course. Dennis?
Gracias. Sí, es bien difícil decir cómo se debe hablar a un auditorio especial, ¿no? Pero en términos generales, por mi experiencia, tanto a las comunidades locales como a los políticos, no le tratemos de impresionar con publicaciones. Don't do that. That's not going to help at all. Eso no ayuda. Sino tratemos de ser simples, con los beneficios tanto para el político como también para las poblaciones locales, sean indígenas, ribereños. Ser simples y mostrar los beneficios de las turberas o de los humedales, y eso es la clave. Ser simples y no tratemos de impresionar con publicaciones en Nature o cualquier otra. Eso no ayuda. Eso está bien para la academia, fantástico, eso ayuda, pero no para los políticos ni para las comunidades locales.
Indeed. Thanks so much reminding us to get grounded again. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, Paula.
Sí, bueno, a mí me gustaría comentar una experiencia que hemos tenido en Chile respecto a la postulación de fondos para la NDC Partnership. A la fecha, bueno, nosotros contamos con 3 acciones al 2035 para turberas específicamente patagónicas, y hemos postulado 3 veces a la NDC Partnership distintas acciones para cumplir estas metas y no nos ha ido bien. Y quizás, bueno, con la conversación que estamos teniendo ahora, puede que sea el lenguaje, no, quizás no estamos vendiendo adecuadamente la descripción de los proyectos para que algún interesado se pueda ver interesado en estas, quizás, no sé, actividades que son bastante concretas, por ejemplo, hacer una guía de métricas de captura de carbono para turberas patagónicas, que es puede ser valorizado económicamente algo menor, pero sería un gran apoyo para nosotros para cumplir la meta, porque, bueno, lo que les decía ayer, el papel aguanta todo, podemos tener las acciones ahí, pero si no contamos con el financiamiento va a ser imposible poder lograr estas metas al plazo que nos comprometimos. Entonces, bueno, quizás aquí un llamado, pedirles apoyo a que quizás con estos espacios podamos facilitar, que verdad, el lenguaje y apoyarnos quizás a hacer estas acciones. Gracias.
Absolutely, thank you, Paula, and definitely happy to crowdsource that with this wide, deep, knowledgeable community. We'll be there for you, and also a very important reason we've invited you to the Global Peatlands Initiative meeting, even though you're not an official partner yet. But karibu, welcome. That means in Swahili.